Hi everybody, it's Kerry Jeffrey here from Love Transforms LC. Thanks for joining me today. We're going to talk all about what it is, how it's formed, and what you can do about it. So first I want to talk a little bit about me and what I do. And the best way to describe it is this. So all of those things that can go on in your life, like anxiety and depression and trauma and those negative thoughts that you can have about yourself that stop you from living the life that you want to live, that get in the way of achieving what you want to do, or just get in the way of you feeling good about yourself. Well, I help people overcome those issues and those blocks using my own unique form of hypnotherapy, counseling, and life coaching. And I've been doing this very successfully for the past 5 years. And why I created this program is that I've been working with people in sort of one-off situations or session by session or in different programs, and I really felt that I wanted to create a very systematized, strategic program to deal very specifically with the issue of anxiety. Because anxiety is one of those things that until you clear it away, it gets in the way of everything else in your life. And with the experience that I've had over the past years working with people on anxiety, I really know that I have the proven tools and strategies to really help people out of what is a very difficult situation. And I know about anxiety very personally because in my younger years, particularly from about age 15 to my mid to late 20s, I suffered from anxiety on an almost daily basis, including panic attacks. And the panic attacks would affect me at any time, anywhere. So it could be in the daytime, going about my normal business. It could be in the middle of the night, and it seemed to be able to come out of nowhere. And it started to rule my life and make my life smaller. And I was able to overcome this using the very tools that I'm going to be teaching you in this program. So I know firsthand just how powerful and overwhelming and isolating and crippling and debilitating that anxiety can be. And what this is going to give you today, it's going to give you an understanding of anxiety, what the key issues are, and the different ways that I'm going to go about dealing with it. And I'm also going to share with you a strategy today that you can take home and use for yourself if you happen to suffer from panic attacks, because it's one thing that really got me through a lot of difficult times, and it's very effective and it works very well. So what is anxiety? Well, anxiety is that feeling that's with you all the time. It's this intangible thing that out of nowhere can accelerate your heart rate and cloud your mind. And you feel like you're on red alert all the time, just wondering when it's going to hit next and thinking, why is this happening to me? And how do I make this stop? And when you're going through the anxiety, you're not thinking rationally, but you just can't stop it. So you pretend to be normal and you start becoming anxious about the anxiety, and you feel teary all the time, and you feel like you're overreacting, and you start to feel like there's something wrong with you. And it's a really difficult place to be, and it's a really difficult place to live, because anxiety sucks all of the joy, all of the contentment, all of the happiness out of the moments in your life. And when you have anxiety, you're never living in the moment. You're living in the past, whereas the fear of the anxiety and what that situation was, or you're living in the future about all the things that might go wrong and all the things that might happen, and when the next panic attack will come again. So your mind is constantly involved in these ways of trying to manage your anxiety, feeling controlled by your anxiety, and trying to stop the anxiety from happening in the future. And how anxiety makes your life smaller, and I'm going to go into this in a little bit more detail further into this presentation today. But basically what happens is that it's a learned response in order to make yourself feel safer. So to explain this better, say you feel anxious about a particular situation, so you're trying to identify what created that anxiety. And say that you're in a supermarket when you had the anxiety, and you've noticed a few times that you've gone to the supermarket, you felt anxious. So you start trying to avoid going to the supermarket, or you might choose a different supermarket and go there and then feel anxious. And so you might send somebody else to do the shopping, or you might do your shopping online. So you're always looking for explanations and causes and triggers of the anxiety. And in order to avoid the triggers, you stop doing things. And so anxiety can make your life very small in an effort to make you feel safe. And that just cuts so many activities, so many things out of your life. And mostly, anxiety is a learned behavior that can be changed. You can learn anxiety as a child from watching your parents, if you had an anxious parent or an anxious relative. You can learn anxiety as a child by making what's called a faulty pattern match. So something happened that you felt anxious about, and then you attach that anxiety to that specific event or to that specific thing. And you learn to become anxious about that. So it created an issue within you that you want to again avoid. So anxiety can be a learned behavior that can change. And anxiety can also be created by trauma. So something that happened to you either in your conscious memory that you're aware of, or a long time ago in your subconscious memory, where you can't really remember the event that happened, but all you're left with is the anxiety. So we're going to look at the physical symptoms of anxiety now. And the first and the scariest and the biggest one is panic attacks. And if you've had a panic attack or an anxiety attack, you'll know that you've had one, because it actually feels like you're going to die. There's this awful feeling of impending disaster or doom. You can go into a cold sweat. You'll feel the adrenaline coursing through your body. Your heart will be pounding. You'll be breathing really rapidly. You'll be feeling like you're going to die. And it's an incredibly intense experience that affects your physiological body and your mind as well. So your body actually feels like it's waiting to be killed. It feels like there is an actual threat present, even though when you look around, there's nothing there, and there can be seemingly no reason for it happening. And the scariest thing about a panic attack is that it can come out of nowhere. Now, clearly it's being triggered by something, but if we can't remove that trigger, then it feels like a panic attack can happen anywhere at any time. And then you start becoming anxious about the possibility of having another one. And when I used to experience anxiety and panic attacks, Panic attacks were the thing that I feared the most because they were so scary and so overwhelming. You can experience hot or cold flushes, even trembling, shaking knees, shaking legs, shaking hands, all of those different sensations that can come on with that. Sweating or shakiness, so as I said, shakiness of the hand, shakiness of the voice, hot or cold, sweating, feeling very clammy or feeling very hot. You have the racing heart, so it can either feel like it's pounding in your chest or it's going really, really fast, as if you've just had a massive physical exertion. And you can have this constant feeling of butterflies or nausea in the stomach. You can actually wake up with that. And I know when I had anxiety, often in the morning I would wake up with this feeling of dread, like this feeling of impending dread that located itself in my stomach. And that was where I felt it the most on a daily basis. And you can feel teary or feel like you're overreacting. And when you're triggered in anxiety, often what happens is that after that event where you either, you got really angry or you got really teary or you felt really hysterical, you can look back on the event and think, oh my goodness, that really wasn't so bad. Why did I have such a massive reaction? And it's because there's something in the subconscious mind that is being triggered to produce that effect, but you can't consciously register it or understand it. And you can have difficulty sleeping or staying asleep. So you can either wake up with that feeling of anxiety, you can wake up with a panic attack, you can go to sleep worrying about, the anxiety, how you're going to be tomorrow, what's going to happen, with those racing thoughts and, the constant worry. So you also can feel really physically tired, physically exhausted, and you're not getting that nice, deep, restful sleep that we all need to feel physically well and emotionally well. The psychological symptoms includes that feeling that there is something really wrong with you. When you're in that anxious state and you look at other people and they seem to be doing things so easily and so calmly, and it doesn't seem to bother them, that you'll compare yourself to other people and come to the conclusion that there must be something seriously wrong with you. And that thought creates more anxiety. So you worry that there is something within you that's either not working or in some way that you're lacking in some essential thing that keeps people calm. So you're always starting to worry that it's something wrong with you. There's that feeling of excessive fear all the time. It's like living with a sword poised over your head, ready to fall. So you can't really relax. You can't really feel peaceful. And even when good things happen, you're waiting for the other shoe to drop. So you're waiting for something to go wrong all the time. Catastrophizing is a really common thing with anxiety, and what that means is that you make it blown out of proportion in what's actually happening. So instead of seeing the reality of the situation, you make it the biggest, worst possible case scenario that you can. So it can be very global negative statements like, that's really awful, or it feels like it's killing me, or everybody is going to reject me, or nobody will like anything about me, or everybody hates me. They're, these really global negative anxiety producing thoughts that are out of proportion to the reality of the situation. So it keeps you in that constant fear because you're always anticipating the worst in an effort to try and keep yourself safe. And there can be obsessive thinking. So if something's coming up, say an event's coming up at work that you have to do a presentation, or you're part of a project, and a potentially fearful event that you know is going to trigger you is coming up. And so you spend so much time obsessively thinking about all the things that could go wrong, all the things that you could do to alleviate that situation, rehearsing it in your mind, which only creates more fear and anxiety. And so when you're in that obsessive thinking pattern, it's almost like you're stuck in a continuous loop that you can't break out of, and that your mind is on this one track wheel going around and around and around on the thoughts or the situation. And there's something that happened which is called derealization. So when you're really anxious, you can have this sensation of unreality, as if where you are, you're out of sync with where you really are. You're in some sort of altered state or different dimension. You feel really disconnected from what's going on, almost as if you're in another time or in another place. So you're very detached from reality, or as if everything around you isn't really happening or isn't really real. And this can be a hard one to wrap your mind around unless you've experienced it, but I know the people who've had it will understand exactly what I'm talking about with that derealization, just the feeling that everything around you is unreal. And the other psychological symptom that you can have is called depersonalization. So that's a feeling of being really detached from yourself or from your surroundings. And people often describe this almost as if they're outside of themselves, looking at it happening to somebody else, or feeling totally not there, as if you're just somewhere observing what's going on. So it's a real break with reality. And that can be from that intense feeling of anxiety. The behavioural issues all come under this heading of learned avoidance. And it's a natural thing that we do. We're hardwired to move towards things that are pleasant and nice and enjoyable, and move away from things that are harmful or hurtful or anxiety producing. That's the way every creature on earth, including us, is hardwired. It keeps us safe. Anxiety takes it quite a few big leaps further, because in order to try and limit the anxiety, what we do is we start trying to avoid any situation that is going to create more anxiety. So how this can happen socially is that you might find going to certain events, like going to a party, going to a work gathering, will trigger the anxiety within you. And when the anxiety becomes too much and you don't feel that you can bear it, you start making excuses, you start avoiding going, you start turning down invitations, and the anxiety can then start to spread out even more. So you might have an anxiety attack going to the movie with friends, and so you stop going to the movies. So what you're trying to do, because the whole thing with trying to manage anxiety is that you're trying to keep yourself safe by avoiding the things that are going to trigger the anxiety. But this creates this vicious cycle of having less and less places that you can feel safe, so you feel more and more anxiety. You can have avoidance at work. So you might start avoiding certain people at work that you feel anxious about. You might start avoiding going to meetings. You might start avoiding different situations. So again, it's that attempt to keep yourself safe, but you start avoiding things. Or you might, at the worst case scenario, and I have seen this happen with clients, what will happen is their anxiety about being in the workplace gets so bad that they need to make special arrangements to start working from home or to start working part-time. So that can happen with people who have anxiety about studying as well, and being, say, at university or being in the school, where they feel so anxious in that environment that the only thing left to do is to either take online study or make some arrangements to do the study at home. So anxiety makes your world smaller and smaller. And at home, it can start to make you avoid certain situations at home, particularly when it comes to sleeping. So there might be certain things that, you will avoid going to bed because of the anxiety that's going to come, or because of the fear of the panic attack. You'll want to have certain people around you at home because you attach your feeling of safety and security to having those people there, so that you won't feel anxious. So it really does area of your life. And transport. So if you have a panic attack on a train or a bus or a tram or anything like that, and it happens once or twice, what you might start doing is fearing getting on that transport because of fear of the panic attack coming, or fear of the anxiety coming. And this can include being a passenger in a car, and it can include driving a car. So a lot of people actually give up their freedom to move around the city and drive or take public transport because of the anxiety that they experience. And the paradox with anxiety is that we're trying to keep ourselves safe and avoid the anxiety, which creates so much limitation about where we can feel safe. And you can become anxious about trying to keep yourself safe, because it can be like a full-time job. And so trying to keep yourself safe can actually increase your anxiety, because there are so few places left for you where you can truly feel relaxed and safe. So anxiety can lead, long-term anxiety and learned behavior can lead to the development of anxiety-based issues. So OCD is an anxiety-based issue. So what that's actually going to do is it's a relief expression. So you did something that gave you relief from the anxiety. So you attach a belief that if you repeat that behavior, it will calm you, and then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So OCD can come about in many different ways. So it can be a constant washing of hands. It can be needing to turn a door handle a certain amount of time. So it becomes associated with repetitive behavior. And when the person repeats this behavior, it relieves the anxiety to a certain extent, but the anxiety never truly goes away. So OCD is really a coping mechanism that people use to help control and alleviate their anxiety. Obsessive compulsive disorder, this is known as. And so, as I said, this can be something that you learn to do because doing it gives you a temporary feeling of relief, and you keep repeating the behavior, which forms a pattern. Agoraphobia is getting to that final extent where there's too many things that have triggered a panic attack or anxiety in the external world. So the only place that they truly feel safe is at home. And even then the anxiety is ever present. But the thought of venturing outside the home just becomes too overwhelming. So for some people with agoraphobia, even going out to the mailbox to collect the mail can be too anxiety producing. And you can imagine how limiting that is and how much that affects your life and then makes you feel depressed and anxious. And phobias are really easy to develop when you have anxiety. So again, this is a learned response to something that happened that created fear. And people can become phobic about anything. The more common phobias are things like flying, so a fear of flying, fear of dentists, a fear of needles, but people can develop a phobia to all different sorts of things, even something like cotton balls. People can become phobic about. And so this is the result of a faulty pattern match. And the great thing about phobias is they're pretty easy to overcome using a specific hypnotherapy technique that I do. So the great thing about all of this anxiety, all of this phobia, all of the triggers is that they can be dissolved. And paranoia can come about when you become so anxious. You can get this feeling that everybody is looking at you, everybody is judging you, everybody is observing you, waiting for you to slip up. So this can become a result of long-term anxiety where you feel very uncomfortable in a certain social situation or in the workplace that can generalize out to every other part of your life. And depression comes along with anxiety because anxiety is exhausting. You are on red alert all the time. It is physically and emotionally exhausting. And anxiety go hand in hand because it feels like there is nothing you can do about the anxiety. It feels like it's totally out of your control. It feels too overwhelming. And that is a really depressing place to be, because when we feel that we don't have any control over ourselves or our lives or our situation, it's such a helpless and isolating feeling. And so a lot of people who present as being clinically depressed are actually also highly anxious, stuck in those obsessive thought patterns, stuck in those fears, stuck in those behaviors of trying to keep themselves safe, which is draining them emotionally and physically. So how anxiety affects you? You can have that fear of rejection all the time, in every situation. It's like you're waiting to be attacked, you're waiting to be dismissed, you're waiting to be rejected, you're waiting for people to tell you you're not good enough, you're waiting for people to tell you that you're making too many mistakes. There's this constant apprehension about what other people think of you and how other people see you, and not feeling good enough. You've got that constant fear of something going wrong, even when everything is going right in your life. That can actually make the anxiety worse, because when you have anxiety and you finally get some happiness, or you finally get a success, or you finally get something that you want, then the fear of losing that creates even more anxiety. Because if you've been anxious for a long time, you're really not comfortable with feeling peaceful. You're really not comfortable with feeling happy, because it's not your current natural state. And some people are anxious about being too happy, or finally getting a great relationship and feeling loved, because then they go back to catastrophizing. So they'll believe things like, when I finally meet the person of my dreams, something bad is going to happen. You know, I'm going to get deathly ill. I'm going to be in a terrible accident. Something's going to happen to them. So sometimes getting something you've always wanted can trigger more anxiety. That fear of being judged, of everybody looking at you or evaluating you, or, you know, thinking bad things about you, which links back to that fear of rejection. The fear that you are going crazy. And this is a really big one when you suffer from anxiety, because you do feel like there is something wrong with you. And you can get into that fear that, you know, you're going to end up with a psychiatric diagnosis. You're walking that fine line. You're going to fall off the other side, and you don't know what's going to happen to you then. So it all goes along with the hallmarks of anxiety, of, you know, those catastrophizing thoughts, those obsessive thought patterns, the fear of what might happen, and the inability to keep yourself safe. And when you're stuck in an obsessive thinking pattern, or when you're stuck in a panic attack, you can really feel like you're losing your mind. And a feeling of neediness and insecurity, because when you're anxious, no amount of reassurance, no amount of somebody saying they love you, no amount of someone telling you you're good enough is ever going to be enough, because the anxiety stops it from getting in. And so you can become very needy and very insecure, often in all of your relationships. And you need that constant need for reassurance. So, you know, you might need that from your partner all the time. You might need that from the people that you work with. And if you don't get it, you become even more anxious. So you want that reassurance that, you know, you're doing well, or you're doing a great job, or you are deserving, or you are lovable, or you are enough. You know, you feel like you need this constant reassurance. But again, all the reassurance in the world, it doesn't alleviate the anxiety. And if it does, it's only for a short amount of time. So how do you want to feel? If you're living with anxiety right now, would you like to feel optimistic and positive most of the time? Would you like to feel safe and secure most of the time? Would you like to feel confident and in control? And would you like to be able to look forward to the future and get excited about the things and the possibilities that could happen for you? And would you like to have that feeling that you are enough exactly as you are right now? And would you like to be relaxed and happy? So before we get into the program, Ease Anxiety, I just want to give you one of the tips that you can use when you have an anxiety attack or a panic attack coming on. So this is something that I used myself very successfully, and it does work, and it's going to give you a feeling of control back. So when you feel the anxiety coming on, because it's usually generated by, you know, a thought that's been happening in the subconscious mind somewhere, and you can start to feel that feeling of unreality, derealization, depersonalization. So you start, you know, you can get physical symptoms like you're starting to grey out or seeing lights. You feel the anxiety come upon you. Is to start to ground yourself in the moment where you are. So you've got to ground yourself in the reality. So for example, if it was happening to me right now, I would say out loud to myself, or in my mind, if I was around other people, you know, I'm sitting in my office on my office chair. I'm wearing my stripy top. I'm touching the desk. So I would start walking around, touching and looking at things and identifying what they are. So, you know, here's my desk. I'm feeling my desk. It's hard. It's black. I'm here, it's 12:38, it's this time, it's this day. So you really drag yourself back using all of your senses, your eyes, your sight, your hearing, everything, to get yourself back into the moment where you are, where there's nothing bad really happening to you. So that's the first part of it, is to ground yourself in the reality of where you actually are, and to identify that there's nothing really happening to you in reality. This is something that's going on in your mind. So that's the first part. The second part is to go straight into reassurance mode. So it's to remind yourself, you know, this has happened to me before and I was okay. You know, it's going to pass. I'm going to be all right. Everything is going to be fine. I'm going to slow down my breathing. I'm going to take some nice deep breaths in and just hold it. And then breathe out slowly. I'm going to be okay. I've been through this before. everything's okay, nothing bad is actually happening to me. Then you go back into grounding yourself in reality. I'm sitting in my office, I'm on my chair, I'm looking at my calendar, there's my glass of water. So you keep using those two techniques together. So one, ground yourself in where you really are by touching, by looking, by hearing, by seeing. So really dragging yourself into the moment and then giving yourself that reassurance that, you know, I've been through this before and I was okay. I didn't die. I'm going to be all right. It's just a panic attack. It's going to pass. I'm already feeling better. I'm already calming down. So you use those two things together, and that's really going to help you. So please, you know, write that down. Remember that. You can always come back and watch the webinar later. But that's a really powerful technique that you can use in a panic attack or when you feel your anxiety really starting to ramp up. Okay, so let's get back to the program, because I'm really so excited to tell you all about this, because it's just such a fantastic program, and it's going to do so much good for everybody who has anxiety that's controlling their lives. So this is made up of 7 sessions, and the first session goes for 90 minutes. And in that session, I'm going to get a full case history all about you, and I'm going to discover as many of the triggers as possible that you can consciously remember. So we're going to identify certain situations that give you anxiety, where you feel more anxious, where you feel least anxious, get all of that information, and then we're going to finish with a very gentle introductory hypnosis that's going to help you feel relaxed and calm and grounded. So in sessions 2 and 3, which go for an hour, we're going to be doing hypnotherapy and therapy for the whole of those sessions. So I'm going to systematically release the triggers and any associated trauma from your life that have caused the anxiety that you can't consciously remember right now. So it's almost as if we're going to be diffusing little bombs that you've been walking around with inside you, little emotional bombs that keep getting triggered. Or if you think about it this way, when you've got constant anxiety, it's like you're just a fire burning all the time and constantly burning. And even when the fire goes out, the embers are still there waiting to be relit. So we're going to put out the emotional fire. And this is going to alleviate all of the triggers for the anxiety, which means that you're going to be in a very different state. And everyone that I've worked with, when I go through and release the triggers, release the anxiety, release the trauma, say that they actually feel so different, that they feel like a different person. Then we can start to look at any other issues that are there. But first, we've got to put that fire out so that you can be in a much calmer state to start to work on the other things. So sessions 4 and 5 are all about looking at your boundaries and communication skills, and we're going to be building those up. And this is, you know, a very skills-based sessions. So I'm going to be teaching you, we're going to be walking through common situations that have created anxiety for you in the past by enabling you to be able to, you know, speak your truth clearly, to set nice, strong boundaries, to not feel emotionally responsible for other people's feelings or reactions. So it's really going to be embedding that solid foundation of emotional skills for you, which again takes the anxiety down because you feel more confident in yourself. You have those skills that you didn't have before. So you feel a lot more confident in your own skills and your own abilities. And sessions 6 and 7 are actually going to be creating goals for you. So venturing out into the bigger world, doing things that you've wanted to do that your anxiety has stopped you from doing. So we're going to set those goals. We're going to get the action steps. We're going to give you the emotional, psychological, hypnotherapy support for that so that you can start to expand out into your life and start getting out there and really living without the anxiety holding you back. And you also get weekly email support from me. So no matter what's going on between sessions, I'm only an email away and I will respond to the emails. And just, I know from my own experience, knowing that someone was there for me was such a huge relief. And in itself, that took the anxiety down notches because I knew that the help was going to be there when I needed it. And I knew that somebody was there to support me. And I'm also giving you my wonderful hypnotherapy MP3 called Sanctuary. And this is just a beautiful hypnosis experience. It creates this wonderful feeling of deep relaxation, of being in a wonderful, safe place. And it has lots of things embedded into it so that you can feel more confident. You can see yourself out there in the world dealing with things in a very confident and relaxed way. And because this is yours, you've downloaded it, you can listen to it as many times as you want during the day. It's always going to be yours to keep. And you're also going to be getting targeted handouts and worksheets to use and to work on. So as I said, this is very skills-based therapeutic program. So I want to cover, the cognitive, the emotional, the psychological, and the subconscious. So all of those issues are going to be dealt with at all of those different levels. So this program is for you if you want to erase your anxiety, if you want to feel confident and comfortable within yourself, if you're tired of feeling teary and shaky and always out of control, waiting for the next terrible thing that might happen, if you want to feel like you're actually living a normal life, if you want to stop being on constant red alert all of the time, and if you want to put an end to your panic attacks, and if you're ready to take control of your life and your future. So imagine if you felt calm and comfortable most of the time. What would that be like for you? You may not even be able to imagine it at the moment, but how would your life be different? If you could go wherever you wanted to go and still feel good. If anxiety was just an occasional thing and not an everyday occurrence. And that's the thing about anxiety. Anxiety, normal anxiety, is something that we need to keep us safe. It's one of our protective things. But when anxiety has become abnormal, when it's consuming you, when it's interrupting your thought patterns, it's not serving a purpose. It's not doing what it was intended to do. Every time we step outside our comfort zone, every time we do something new, the first few times there's going to be a little bit of anxiety, but you can transform that anxiety and make it work for you by getting the energy and channeling that into starting to becoming excited about what you're going to do instead of becoming anxious. And that's something that you're going to learn in the program. Imagine if you felt normal, if you woke up in the morning and looked forward to the day ahead and was excited about life and felt calm. Imagine if your anxiety no longer controlled your life. Who would you be if you didn't have that anxiety? How would your life be different? And you might be anxious thinking about not having the anxiety, because that can trigger anxiety. It's one of those things that feels like, that would be so great, that would be so wonderful, I wish I could have that, but I'm scared it will never happen. So let's talk about the biggest fears. That I won't be able to change. So when you have this fear, you'll find yourself thinking things like, this is just, it's too much of a part of me. I've been doing this for too long. I can't imagine being any other way. I've tried to change and I can't see myself changing. I just don't think I can get rid of this anxiety. I just don't think I will be able to change it. It won't work for me. It might work for everybody else, but it won't work for me because there's something wrong with me, which means that it actually won't work. Now, this is a huge fear driven by that anxiety that there is actually something wrong with you. And if you believe there is something actually wrong with you, that it's something inside you, maybe that's something genetic, it's something that you were born with, you're going to have this fear that it won't work for you. Well, I promise you, if you give 100% to the program, it is going to work for you. That's just a fear. That doing this program is going to fail like everything else I have tried. So you might have spoken to psychologists, you might have been to psychiatrists, you might have tried EFT, you might have tried so many other solutions that haven't given you a long-term effect. And the reason for that is it's a band-aid, not a solution. It's not getting at the issues underneath. It's not solving it and resolving it at that subconscious level where it is. So surface things like doing EFT, things like talking about the anxiety, things like taking anti-anxiety medications can give you that temporary relief, but it's only temporary. It keeps coming back. This is going to give you a solution. I'm anxious about being hypnotized. This is one of the biggest fears that everybody has about hypnosis, because what they've seen is stage hypnotists who are saying that they're controlling people's minds, controlling people's behavior, making them do things against their will. Look, let me blow this one out of the water. You cannot control anybody's mind. You really cannot control anyone's mind. And even if I could do that, I wouldn't do that, though I can't do that. What sort of unscrupulous person would you be to want to try and control somebody? Hypnosis is a normal, natural state. And if you have anxiety, you are actually in an hypnotic trance a large percentage of the time, because you're imagining the situations that might go wrong. You're imagining that, so it feels so real that you're playing these daydreams in your mind about all the things that are happening or could happen, that are giving you the physiological reactions, so the racing heart, the racing mind, the sickness in the stomach. Hypnosis is a form of focused attention. So if you're watching a movie and you're so deeply into the movie that you feel like you're really there, that's hypnosis. Worry is a form of hypnosis. Anxiety is a form of hypnosis. Reading a really great book and getting so involved in the story is a form of hypnosis. It's focused attention. So what we're going to be doing with the hypnotherapy, which is very relaxing, very safe, you will feel very safe, you will feel very comfortable, is that we're going to release those things at that subconscious level. So we're going to give you what you want, which is the relief and resolving the issue. It is very safe. It is always under your control. You are always in charge of the situation. You are always in control of the situation. It's something that you allow to happen. And if you don't want it to happen, it won't happen. So that's something that we can talk about in the discovery session if you still have any fears or anxieties about hypnosis. So how do you apply for the program? Well, the best way to do that is to book your free discovery session with me. You can do that on my website page. You can do that on my Love Transforms LC Facebook page. So you just book that in anywhere in the world. It will give you the times that I'm available, and we'll talk on Skype. We'll have 20 minutes together. So what I'm really interested in is hearing from you whether I feel that you're a good fit for the program. So you can't just book this in with me. You need to talk to me about it, because I need to feel professionally certain that you are the right fit for the program, and more importantly, that the program is going to give you the result I want it to give you. Now, if you're in Australia, you can give me a call on my mobile number that you can find on the website. Just give me a call. We can do it on the phone if I'm free. Or you can leave a message and I'll contact you, and we'll work at a time when we're free. So we're just going to talk for 20 minutes about your situation. You tell me how anxiety is affecting your life and how you would want to live, how you imagine your life could be without the anxiety. And trust me, it's really common that most people can't even imagine being without anxiety. So if you can't answer that question, don't really worry about it. But if you're watching this, you're looking for a solution. You're looking for a way that is going to really make a change and give you peace and give you control and give you confidence and give you back your ability to enjoy your life free of that anxiety. And I want you to get a permanent solution, not a band-aid. And that's why this is put into a program, because the way we are as human beings, we do one or two times, we start feeling better, and so we stop. When you're in a program, it means you've paid for it, you're committed to it, it's all booked in, and you are fully invested in this process. And you absolutely deserve to live a life free from constant anxiety. You deserve to live a great, big, wide, expansive, exciting life. You deserve to live the life that you want to live without it being ruled by anxiety, without watching anxiety chip away more and more and more of the freedom in your life. You can feel safe. You can feel good about yourself. You can overcome anxiety and panic attacks. And I know this because I've done it myself. And every single thing that I use in my programs are things that I have personally used for myself. I know they're effective and I know that they work. So thank you so much for watching, and book in your free discovery session with me. Take the opportunity to talk to me. Let's get rid of this anxiety in your life once and for all, so that you can live the life that you really want and that you really deserve. Thank you.